This episode of Love After Lullabies contains adult content. Listener discretion advised. Today we have Dr. Diane Mueller, is a seasoned sexual wellness authority blending in a strong educational foundation with rich clinical and teaching experience. With a dual doctorate in naturopathic medicine and acupuncture and oriental medicine, Diane has illuminated the discourse on sexual health through her practice, My Libido Doc. Diane extends her expertise through the Libido Lounge podcast, her online training institute, and by training medical professionals worldwide in functional medicine. At the heart of her practice lies the belief that healthy libido is a cornerstone to holistic wellness, driving a practice that has orchestrated transformative health journey for her clients. Please help me welcome Dr. Diane Mueller. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait for this conversation. It's going to be so fun.
Oh, best intro ever. Thank you for that. And yeah, you're right. Like I'll start just a quick thing. And I'll let you guys lead the conversation. But just to start a stat real fast is there was a survey that showed that 70%, just under 70%, 69 actually technically, which is really fun for the topic. But it showed that like almost 70% of people want to ask their doctor about sex, but don't.
Oh.
So that's how big of a problem I think we have here, and why I'm like so grateful to be on your show and so grateful that you guys are helping me spread the word with this, because I just think this conversation, like surveys are showing that we need to talk about this, that people want to, but where do people go for this?
Yeah, definitely. And especially with, my work of working with new and expectant parents, that is such a huge decline. Sex goes out the window, and it's almost like couples have to enter this new phase, and what I've called it with them is like you're reclaiming your sex life. You're kind of starting over and getting to know each other. Your bodies have changed. The busyness of parenting, everything gets in the way. So
100%.
Discuss.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like you're dating all over again. It's like, wait, how do we do this? I mean, it wasn't that long, 9 months in the general scheme of things, but it could be awkward.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the awkward, I actually just put out a episode of this on my podcast recently around awkward sex, because there is like this element, right? When it's been a while, like sometimes it's like even been a while since couples have even made out. Sometimes it's not even about sex. It's even like we've just gotten into the peck, honey, goodbye thing, honey, hello thing. And so sometimes there is this period where it is this like ripping the Band-Aid off and feeling awkward. And when I look up like awkward sex online, one of the things as I'm like studying like what content to make, one of the things when I've Googled that comes up is like, well, how to avoid that. And in my mind, the question is incorrect. It's not how to avoid that. It's how to get comfortable with that and just realize that it's like we are dating again, like you're saying, and there is going to be this element where sometimes there's these awkward moments, and just to roll with it and make light of it and not put all this heaviness around it can make it so much easier to just kind of go for it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, throwing all the expectations out the window. There's so much pressure that people put on each other 6 weeks, that 6-week check-in that we have with the doctor. Most of the time the non-birthing parent's like, all right, it's go time. Let's do this. And there's a lot more that needs to take place before that happens.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many, like anything we're dealing with health in general, whether we're talking about pregnancy and birthing a child, whether we're talking about sex, whether we're talking about a digestive problem. There's so many different layers of it. And I think oftentimes we minimize it or reduce it down to just like one thing. With sex, it's like fix your hormones. And yeah, you got to do that. But just with all of these things, there's so many different layers. And I think the reductionistic mindset around this is really getting people into trouble.
I saw that you coined the term hot monogamy. So I need to know, what does this mean? And how can new parents with babies and toddlers tap into this?
To be clear and fair, I don't believe I actually coined that term. There was somebody that wrote a book a long time ago that is called Hot Monogamy, and then somebody wrote a book called Red Hot Monogamy. So I don't claim to have coined the term by any means, but a lot of what my work is really what I call hot and modern monogamy, and it's saying how do we take the great parts of monogamy, the tradition and stability and all of that support and love, and how do we bring passion back in? And I lost track of your question because I wanted to clarify that. So
Yeah.
what was your question again?
Just, how can young parents kind of tap into that? Because from what I know, and you please correct me, you are a hormone specialist, but when you're in a stable relationship, a secure, stable relationship, you have so much more, oh my God, endorphins that are there. And so that is like a sex killer.
Yeah,
Isn't that, does that
exactly.
dampen your libido? And so it's hard to kind of bring in that passion.
There's a few different things. I mean, one, I do think it is really important to make it a priority. And I do think scheduling, especially for early parents, for new parents or repeat parents, with the second, third, and fourth, et cetera, children, it becomes even more important. And one of the exercises, right, that I often give people in beginning to work with me is to make a values list of your top values, and hopefully your partner is like right there at the top, right? And then to draw out a pie chart of your average day with 24 pieces in the pie, and hopefully 7 to 9 are sleep, although in pregnancy and childbirth and all that, it's probably not anywhere close to that, obviously. But then what you're looking for is, does your partner have any slice of the pie in the week at all? Are we actually giving any moment to our top, one of our top values? And that exercise is really designed to say, oh, I have a huge mismatch in where I'm putting my time with what I value the most. Now, obviously, early parenting with waking up at any hour, sleeping in 20, 30 hour long segments, much of the time, and all the things that go with that. Obviously, there might not be like the energy at some points for actual intimacy. But even within the context of that, one of the things that I really help people and couples open up their mind to is to actually change, especially during that interim, but even after, what their definition of sex is. And so sex it doesn't have to mean penetration, right? Which is like probably in many ways, our highest energy types of things. But so the conversation can be like, hey, in these, this 1 hour, this 30 minutes that we have together once a week, like how can we continue to cultivate closeness and some level of sexual and intimacy here? And maybe that's not penetration. Maybe that is like giving each other, a 15-minute massage with a happy ending, and you get a massage this week and I get a massage that week, and we trade off. So the more I think we can say, hey, let's redefine during this time period of our life what this intimate space, is, and find ways to say, okay, well, even if it's grandma and grandpa are coming over and we're going to take a nap, and hopefully grandma and grandpa can stay for, a few minutes after so we can have this time, the scheduling during that time I actually find to be the most, pivotal, because you have to work around this new being.
I've talked with couples about scheduling, and it's amazing how many people are like turned off by that. It's like, no, this makes it a priority. And sometimes it actually helps with getting yourself in the mood if it takes you a lot longer. I'm speaking more to women when I say that, of if like, oh, tonight's the night, you can kind of start to get in the mindset. And I always encourage, like, just try it and see.
Well, and here's what I tell people in response to that, because I hear that a lot too. Obviously, in my work, it's such a common thing around like, I just want this to be spontaneous. It's supposed to be spontaneous. But what we don't realize is that when we are dating, when it's all that new relationship energy, we're largely scheduling it. So we know like, oh my gosh, I have a date Wednesday night, and like, wow, are we gonna like maybe make love for the first time? So we shave, we put on our like special things, we like do all the things, and we're going into that, and it's kind of scheduled. And then maybe we're not going to see them for a week, and it's again, we have date night. We know it's probably going to end in sex. That's like, it's probably scheduled. So I mean, it actually is scheduled. And so when it becomes less scheduled is actually when we move in together, or when we share keys to each other's houses and we just start spontaneously being around each other. And so then we think, because we've combined our worlds, which is when oftentimes passion starts falling, we're like, oh, well, now we can't schedule it. Even though if you actually look at it from this lens, it's like, well, actually, when it was hot, we were technically largely always scheduling it. So I think that's a really important thing for people to realize, is like in that early dating stage, what people are doing is they're scheduling, they're intentionally doing this. So why don't we take that and actually put it into our lives and really date our husbands, really date our wives?
Yeah. It's a great read
Well, yeah.
thing.
And
Yeah.
yeah, to both of your point, it isn't about like, well, it's 5 o'clock, it's time to do the sex thing, right? So like lead into it just like you would on a dating each other on a date night. You got dinner, you got the romance, you got like some piece to that before the sex. So make sure that happens too if you're scheduling it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like my partner and I, it's like tonight is our date night. We have we have three step kids, his kids, not mine. And so they're around a lot. So we have like our once a week date night. And so date night starts at 5:30. I stopped my work today at 4 o'clock because I want to like have time to unwind, to get into the mood, to like get a quick workout in and be really present for him because this is our one night a week that we get to actually connect. And, and what that means is like throughout the day, because it's date night, now he's flirting with me. Now I'm getting these cute flirty texts throughout the day. And so it allows too, because I think in our relationships, we forget how to flirt, right? It's kind of like that awkward thing where it's like when he sends me certain texts that are flirty, I still have my awkward moments with it, even though I like doing this work, right? There's still moments where it's like, whoa, he said that, right? So there's still like,
we do the same thing. We have to make sure that Siri doesn't read it in the car when our kids are there. So like we have to pick and choose, like, should I answer this now?
Yeah. Yeah.
right. We have a special app that's only for us. That's like,
Smart.
double password protected. So if the kids are like in the camera, like nothing can come up. So we super duper password protected and that sort of thing. But it allows this extra flirt to come back. It gives something to flirt about when, oftentimes we forget the art of flirting.
Mm-hmm. Aaron and I are very good at flirting.
Oh, good.
Sometimes it makes our kids
Yeah.
makes our kids uncomfortable. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you guys."
It's really good. You're showing them such a good example of like love and a happy relationship.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point too. Is you saying you have your one day a week, you got the kids and the things. What's your advice for parents that they want the intimacy, they want the sexual contact, but like they have kids in the house, right? And they don't have not have like the private space, or how do you what would your recommendation be to maneuver that?
But I can tell you, I have one client that only has sex in the closet, and that's literally their spot. Is like they just like, and that's their code word is like, hey, closet 5 minutes. And so that's how they've, really learned to, navigate that is like that's the one spot that they have found that they can get away from the kids and, have a lock on their closet door and all that stuff, obviously. So, I think like we want to open up the curiosity of like, okay, what can we do here? There's also, and obviously there's a financial burden with what I'm about to say. But if you can get a babysitter to come over for an hour, there's the rent rooms by the hour thing, and these are not like the ghetto motels, right? You can actually look up like very nice hotels. Oftentimes will let you rent rooms for an hour or two. Oftentimes these are for like people on business trips that just need a moment to take a nap and that sort of thing. But that's an idea too, is like, hey, maybe, does it work into your budget to have that one day a week where the babysitter comes over, you meet at the hotel, which is so hot, it's so sexy. And you do that. But I do think with that around like the advice is like, you have to schedule it and you have to have a plan, and you have to have a plan that involves where are the children going to be, or it might not happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm digging the hotel idea.
Yeah, really fun.
That's gonna be on the books
it's
soon.
So hot. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I know a lot of the couples or a lot of the listeners, are young parents, and I know that you talk about libido as a vital sign of health. And how can parents tell the difference between like a normal postpartum tired versus something deeper when it comes to low desire?
Yeah, and it's not I wish there was like a clear cut answer to it, because I don't really believe there is it's like 100% clear. But I do recommend from that standpoint lab tests, right? And lab tests not just to look at hormones, and because hormones are going to be all over the place right after that time, but lab tests to look at things like cortisol, DHEA, micronutrient levels, like these other things and cortisol is our stress hormone for those that don't know it. I think most people know that. But these ideas of these other things that can get out of balance, of things like common, like, oh yeah, it's very common. You're feeding this life throughout pregnancy, throughout nursing the baby, if you're choosing to do that. So it does take extra vitamins and minerals. So sometimes extra fatigue is a level of, hey, these nutrients are deficient. So I do think there is a level of that. And then I also think there's a level of, hey, like, are you starting to, especially once you get them, more sleep trained, where you're getting at least like bigger chunks throughout the night, are you starting to see like your energy is improving? Are you starting to say like, oh yeah, I can do a workout or I can take a walk now? And if like, that's the biggest thing. If you're just, if it's months later and your infant is like fairly sleep trained, where you're getting, a little bit larger chunks, and you're like not seeing any difference with how you feel, even when you're sleeping in larger chunks, that's when I'd start to question, maybe your body is not recovering fully.
Yeah, that's a great indicator. That makes a lot of sense, because it
Yeah.
seems like sleep is such a, a scapegoat and a reason for so many things.
And maybe important to define libido as far as like, the want to have sex may still be there, but just the physical tiredness, or like, and it really communicate that effectively between each other, because it's very easy to have resentment for like, one person is in the mood and the other one's not, but like articulating that it's the physical tiredness, not the want,
Yeah, I mean, talking about it is essential, right? So it's like, there's even stats like, for example, that if you take a survey of the happiest couples and you put them on a scale, be like, oh yeah, this is the happiest group at top as far as like how they report their relationship, 92% of them talk about sex. So I do think there's this real thing that needs to be talked about more in marriage and long-term relationships. It's like, we can still reject each other, and we still actually oftentimes reject each other quite a bit. And then be like open, saying like, I want to know the impacts of this on you. And I want to find some sort of solution where we can still connect and we can still share intimately. But I also can, we can respect the fact that I'm like completely exhausted. And just sometimes naming it can make be a huge help with that. But also like I said, like, are there ways that we can be like just more intimate and touchy and sharing the oxytocin? Maybe it's like, we're on the couch watching a movie and we're exhausted, but I'm like stroking your thigh, and, the man's making his way up the woman's skirt. And like, maybe it doesn't go any further than that, than just like, really soft, tender, intimate thigh stroking. But there's still like, what ways can we show up and just share in this energy right now while we're going through this time? And, and then I think the other thing with that is really like the foundation I found in talking about sex is really starting with the positives. So if we're in this space where we're not having a lot of like actual true sex and that sort of thing, even giving our partner the feedback of like, oh my gosh, the way you just like rubbed your hand across my breast when you were giving me a hug that other day, like, while I don't have the energy for it right now, I want you to know that just like reminded me so much of how much I love you. And, and so like the more we're specific and we're building them up throughout this time, I think it can really help carry that relationship further, because we're continuing to say, yes, I'm here. I still want you. Yes, you're still providing this. Yes, I still see this in you. And so I think that can help carry through that time quite significantly.
Something that we've talked a lot about too is the sense, with babies, the sense of being overtouched.
Yeah.
And because things that I've seen of couples that are like, I'm overtouched, I don't want to be touched. And when my partner comes and like puts their hand on my shoulder, it's like, ugh, I have this like yuck feeling, or like, I don't want it to go any further. How have you managed to deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, I think it comes back to like the honest, conversation here around like, okay, what areas like can we support? And I think it's important for us to have a conversation though around like, what are the impacts? Like, how is this impacting you? Because I know, I've talked to couples where it's like, okay, like the man in the relationship has a big touch as the love language, right? That's really big. And then, a woman can go through this period of like, I don't want to be touched. I don't want to be touched. And I've talked to men where it's like, I just needed a hug so bad. I just needed something, and I couldn't get this from her. And I've seen that really, really negatively impact their relationship. So I do think there, like my opinion is there does need to be some sort of conversation here around one, like, how is this impacting, her, and like her, like, over touch, overstimulation, oh my gosh, my breasts are sore, all the things, to, to the impact potentially on him, and just an open conversation around, like, gosh, I love you, I'm having a hard problem with touch, but understanding the impact. At the same time, to say, is there a way that we can be creative where I can respect the fact that your body is overtouched, but I also have this need? So, so is there a way we can be creative? Do you have the capacity to wake up and at least give me a 30-second hug and just be in that space with me? Like, can you give me that? Like, okay, what else? And just work through it until it's like, we can find something that we can both live with for the temporary time period. Because we want to make sure that there's not so much of this is, this, I can't handle this at the detriment to the opposite partner, right? I think it's like both voices, I think, need to have a say here. And it's not easy stuff, right? This is not easy stuff.
No, yeah. I mean, it's really vulnerable to initiate any sort of touch or sex when it's kind of a raw, rocky topic right then. Sometimes I've told couples, like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, take sex completely off the table. So that way, any touch is just that. You're letting go of the expectation that, is this going to lead to something? Is this because he or she wants more than this? That way they can actually just enjoy, okay, this moment right here is what it is.
Yeah. And there's a process of erotic repair that's actually similar to that is useful for couples oftentimes at many different stages, whether we're talking about, early infancy all the way to, like, wow, we just haven't had sex in a while and I don't feel a lot of safety and trust in this relationship. And in erotic repair techniques, it's typically done something similar where you spend like 2 weeks, and exactly what you said, like, sex is just off the table, like absolutely no sex, and touch is just for that. And a really good exercise in erotic repair is week 1. It's all about me touching you non-sexually and you just receiving. So I'm going to lay you on the bed, I'm going to smother you with oil in a non-sexual way, and you're just going to relax and just enjoy me rubbing your back. And you just get to receive, and you just get to practice being in that receptive role with no expectations. And then week 2, you flip, and the other partner, just non-erotic massage, gets to receive. And then usually how this builds is then week 3 and 4, you kind of, again, rotate. One person's on one week, the other person's on the other. And this time you're allowed to do a happy ending, right? But still no penetration. And so you can play a little bit more with that erotic energy, but there's still, like, not a lot of pressure. It's like there's still that person that really just gets to lay and receive. And then as you continue build this up, then you get back into the more penetrative sex and, the intimacy that way. But that's what I've seen in erotic repair too. It's like taking sex off the table and just allowing touch to be touch does have its place in certain times for healing, for repair, for rest, all of that.
Did you know that nearly 70% of couples struggle in their relationship after having a baby? But it doesn't have to be that way. Through my coaching programs and mini courses, I'll help you and your partner strengthen communication, rebuild intimacy, and feel confident tackling challenges together as they arise. You've spent so much time preparing for baby. Now it's time to prepare your relationship. From private coaching, programs, and digital courses, I've got you covered. Visit www.loveafterlullabies or check the link in the show notes to join us today. I could see that exercise being really helpful for the birthing parent too, of, just brand new body, everything's different, being able to receive that without hopefully letting some of that head trash go,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because I mean, that's, there's something that I say a lot, which is the capacity for pleasure is directly related to the capacity for presence. When you're talking about, like, the head trash, I think that's one of the things that impacts, women in this situation so much, is like, there's all this changing body. There's, like, all this excess skin. There's all these, like, new things on her body that she's never dealt with. And it's so easy to get in this really, negative type of spin in the mind. So pleasure really is a meditative practice, right? It really takes mindfulness to have pleasure. So it's like the moment we're like experiencing, oh, the hand of our, partner in our hair, the hand of our partner on our thigh. The moment I'm like thinking about, oh my gosh, like where, like, where did this like extra skin come from, or these stretch marks, or whatever we're saying in our mind, the moment we're out of our body, we're not feeling the pleasure. So it really is a continued like self-care practice. Pleasure really is to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to, just like with meditation, it's like, I'm going to drop that thought. I'm going to come back to the sensation. And that's how we can, it's one of many ways, but it's one way we can start to break that vicious cycle of the monkey mind of getting used to that new body.
Yeah, that's great. Meditative. I love that.
Yeah, it's my favorite. And I've done, like, I say this with like high respect for meditation. Like, I've done 36-day meditation retreats. So I've gone very deep into that world, and pleasure is still my favorite form of mindfulness. It's way fun,
Nice. I had a listener question. It wasn't really a question, it was more of a statement, but this person reached out and said, I have a really hard time thinking about any of this because I grew up in purity culture. So I guess the question is, how do you start? What's a good starting point to have some of these conversations when there's a lot of shame wrapped around pleasure and sex and libido?
Yeah, and I relate. I hope that listener does listen to this episode, because I relate so much. I grew up in purity culture as well. I went to Catholic school my entire life, and I first started this work. It was somebody handing me a book called Sex for One, which I at that time had never self-pleasured. And friend handed me this book because I had pain in my vulva that was not going away. And doctors were like, we don't know, all of your tests are fine. And I was up at night and I couldn't sleep. So a friend, because the pain was so bad, and a friend hands me this book by Betty Dodson, and it's all about masturbation and self-pleasure. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is like, I don't even talk about all that area, nonetheless do anything, right? It's so much shame. And, but I was so miserable. And in the book, this woman talks about self-pleasure. Actually, in some of her work, she was finding that people's pain was going away. So it really spoke to me, because that's what I was experiencing at that time. And so I tried self-pleasuring for the first time in my life, and the pain went away.
Oh, wow.
And it took a few days of doing it for the pain to stay away. But once the pain stayed away, it was just gone. And so the way I can tell you, like, the way I've come to work with this is in my own life, is because I was raised this way, and I'm still a real big fan of religion, of spiritual practice. I just think there's so much foundation and good teachings in so many of these faith-based, dogmas. And the way I've come to make peace with it is like, how is starting to change the beliefs around, like, how can something that is like God-given, right? How can this like body part that is God-given be bad? Like, and actually start like, does this part make sense that I should be ashamed? Like, would God want me ashamed of my body? Like, I don't really think so. And so I just started asking myself like different questions around like, okay, can I have this and still be a good person? Can I still, have this and still be a spiritual person? I think there's an element of, starting to ask that question. Like, does it make sense that God would give a body part that you should be shamed about? Like, does that actually make sense? And, and I say that cautiously, because I know there's so, like, what I have seen in healing my shame around this is, I'm 45, and that event that I told you about, getting the Sex for One book, that happened when I was 20. So we're 25 years later, and I've been working on this since then. And I generally feel good. And then every once in a while, it's like there's a thought. I'm like, crap, there's that shame again. So, so I think it's a continuum that we really practice this on. And if people like are having a really hard time with this, and especially when it comes to some of these practices, I say like, okay, well, we know that sex, like if masturbation's the problem, then it's like, well, okay, but being with a partner oftentimes is great, and oftentimes is like supported religiously and in purity culture. And so then in what ways can you say, like, have a partner masturbate with you? And that's really like more around together pleasure and not so much self-pleasure. So, sometimes we can do that, overcome that bridge. But the biggest, thing I've seen is start asking like different questions, like, is this belief ultimately true? Is this belief ultimately true that this is what purity means? And, and just continue to ask yourself questions and to remember that it's like, in my experience, it's way more of a continuum than like a final destination.
That's good. Good stuff.
It is good. We're just sitting here absorbing it
I
all. It makes so much sense. And, the self-pleasuring is one side of it, but then also as in like a committed partnership, especially after a baby arrives. You said the hot monogamy, like, does that include also finding like new kinks together, right? Or, exploring it in different ways because you want it to stay fresh, right? And that could be tough in that culture as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of my giveaways for everybody, and one of my free checklists is my yes, no, maybe checklist, which brings up a ton of different things from a novelty perspective, ideas to throw around. So people can download that at mysexdoc.com. But in that, you'll find like, ways that maybe you could connect more emotionally from a novelty perspective, all the way to, kinky stuff. And the idea with that is to just give people a lot of insight to, like, it doesn't have to be, whips and chains and bondage and all like that's so, definitely what some people are turned on by, and that can be great and fun. But that doesn't mean that from a novelty perspective, it has to be that. Like, it could be as simple as trying a slightly different position. Sometimes just even like bending your legs different with sex can actually change the whole thing. Like, sometimes putting a wig on, like, it's such a simple thing. That's usually like, it might be an edge for somebody, but it doesn't have to be these wild things that can actually bring novelty and newness in. So that checklist is designed to, just kind of stimulate some ideas. Like, some things you're going to read and be like, oh, absolutely not. No way would I ever do that. But there'll be other things that most people find on there. It's like, well, I never thought about that, but that could actually be in the realm of my boundaries and my safety.
Yeah. Nice. We'll have to fill that out.
Yeah. Mysexdoc.com. It's really fun.
Yeah. Aaron and I have a kid-free house because they're at the grandparents until Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, I got you on a good day.
We're going to go down that checklist tonight.
All right. I love this date night. See? Planned. Love it. Scheduled.
Yeah.
I had one more listener question, which you kind of answered already, but if there's anything else you want to add to it. How do you create alone time when you have teenage kids at home in the summertime?
Yeah. There's two of them in my
And
world.
we're also, our kids are getting to that age of teenage years, and so in our house we have not a whole lot of privacy, so we're interested in the answer too.
Yeah. I mean, I think a large portion of it is like, one, it's either late, it's scheduled. It really is. It's either like late night, but that doesn't work with them a lot of times. Like, we were like getting ready to make love a couple nights ago, and it was just like boom, boom, boom by 14-year-old, like loud as can be. And not because he needed anything, just because he wanted to come and just like, but then we're up checking on him and all the things, right?
Yeah.
So it does get hard, but that's where I think like having ways of like, oh, okay, they're going over to the friends that night, like really coordinating, like, when are they going to be out of the house? When are they going over for the sleepover? Hopefully that can happen. And if not, it's literally finding like babysitters or that sort of thing. But as much as possible, I would really encourage like, okay, getting their schedule. When are they going to be out of the house? When do they have something going on that they're not there? I mean, like, oh yeah, they're going out to play basketball with their friends for 2 hours, at this time. Try to get them to do it, at a time you're free, and fill in the gap there. But it's really, that's where it's like, I think it's very difficult without scheduling and a plan.
Mm-hmm. It seems like morning would be good with teenagers because, like, teenagers typically don't wake up early,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've talked about that too, and it's different times of the day equals like different kind of sex too.
Yeah,
100%.
So morning sex is so much different.
Yeah, there's no kissing with me in morning sex. Like, no kissing.
Oh, I get out and brush my teeth and come back to bed so we can do the kissing thing.
Yeah,
that's my
but
rule.
you gotta switch it up.
You do, and you're right. It is absolutely different flavors. So different times of the day for sure. And like, I wish I had some sort of. I feel like I'm not giving you like a perfect answer on this because honestly, I really don't have one. I think this is it's a very, very challenging thing. Yeah. And I think the best thing we can do is just be aware and schedule it as much as possible. And then sometimes I think there's something to be said with like locking the door and just going for it if they're home. Mm-hmm. Like whatever, like maybe you get interrupted like we did the other night, but there's just an element around like, okay, like maybe it's going to be, maybe we're in here for 15, 20 minutes instead of the length that we'd like, but at least we have a moment together and at least we're connecting. And and just not being as worried about, it's obviously not as fun because you have to stay quiet, which, definitely changes the vibe a little bit. But I do think there's an element where it's just like, all right, they're home, they're crazy. Like, as long as they're not burning down the house, just like going for it.
Yeah. There can be something really hot about having to be quiet.
Yes, there can. I have found that to be a turn on.
But I think too, with like teenagers and with young kids, and when you're in a period of time, talking about it with your partner and making sure that you're at least on the same side of the fence of like, this is temporary, this is a phase, we'll get through it, and it'll be gone before we know it, rather than it kind of turning into this, you're on opposite sides of the fence, and we don't want to build resentment in any way.
Exactly. Like and that's where like talking about it and just talking about the impact and how to mitigate the impact as much as possible. I just think the worst thing we can do in these situations is largely just shoving it under the rug and being like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And that's where I think the resentment builds. So even if it's like, wow, I miss this so much and I miss you so much, and like I can't figure out how to fix it, but I just want you to know that like I still want you. Versus like not talking about it, can be really helpful. It's not everything, but it can definitely help.
Yeah.
Dr. Mueller, I was curious real quick before we end. Do you still practice functional medicine as far as hormone balancing optimization?
So under my libido doc business, what I do there is I teach people, what to do. So I tell them around like, oh, these are the top root causes. Blood pressure, blood flow, and hormones, and neurological problems, et cetera, et cetera. These are the tests you need. These are what the test means. Here's how to fix them. So I do under this brand through education. My other business, my other brand is My Lyme Doc. So it's a very different brand. So there, under that brand, I do a lot with more chronic illness, a lot of Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, really complicated things like that. So under that brand, that's more like my one-on-one practice. The libido is like education. Let me teach you about this. So under the Lyme brand, I do a lot of functional naturopathic medicine. Yes.
Yeah, interesting. We'd love to have you back on someday and talk about that more.
Yeah, happy to. Happy to.
Yeah. But Aaron he's on testosterone right now for optimization, which has definitely shifted our sex life. Kind of went like this. And so we've had to navigate impacts of that change ourselves. And yes, for the most part, it's been really fun, but it's also, there's been some challenges along the way.
Challenges and lots of communication around what it means. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there can definitely, these shifts can create shifts in desire and those kind of things. And, it's also a good reminder for people that while testosterone is not FDA approved for women, unfortunately, we actually do need testosterone. And a really fun application in microdoses for women of testosterone is actually using testosterone or DHEA and which is the precursor to testosterone, and applying it to the clitoral head. And it can bring so much sensation back into the clitoris. And it helps so much with desire for a woman. So, you don't want to like too much because it actually can increase the size of the clitoris, and a little increase is lovely, and, too much can be not what women are going for. But, like one milligram a day, maybe 2 milligrams a day, like these very small doses of testosterone applied that way, I've seen to help women a lot. I use it. I love it. It is a game changer for me. So I definitely recommend that, especially as women enter either like that period where all the hormones are like normalizing after childbirth. Obviously clear it with your, OB and all that. And then also with, at the perimenopause stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been talking to Miranda about having her hormones checked as well, and we're both getting to our midlife.
Yeah, we're the same age, mid-40s.
Making sure that everything looks optimized instead of the standard ranges that they test the sick population on what the correct ranges should be. And
Exactly. Like we're we're so much lower. Our testosterone ranges have lowered about 40% in the past 45 years. So when so many people, both men and women, are tested, it's like, well, they're in range, but they're like not, like, it doesn't mean that just because you're in range, it's optimized and you're at your most functioning level. So there's definitely a lot of things I do in my work too, is like teach people like, oh yeah, man, you want to be in that, like, close to that 900 range, right? Like, you want to be really at that top of the range, and women, you want to be in that 50-ish range. And you can have all the testosterone in the world, but if none of it is available to your cells, which is another problem for a lot of humans, then that's going to create issue too. If you can't use it on a cellular level, it doesn't matter how much you have. So it's just making sure we're getting the proper testing for all of those things.
Yeah, this is so great.
Yeah.
Well, before we log off here, how can people find you?
Well, thank you. I would definitely love for people to know about my upcoming book. So it is available for order now. You can find it at wanttowantit.com. So when you pre-order it, as well as the first month after it officially launches. So pre-order is available now. It will release on November 3rd. And both now as well as in November, you will get bonuses for ordering it. And those bonuses are around, I think I'm close to around like $300 of free bonuses at this point. So really good time to get it while these bonuses are available. So that's one place. Definitely go take your yes, no, maybe checklist at mysexdoc.com. And then you can find everything else as well as additional freebies just at my main website at mylibidodoc.com.
Perfect. And we'll have all that linked in the show notes too. So if you're driving and want to go back and look into that, please do. That's so great.
Miranda and I were talking before we got recording how great her podcast is. So please go on and give a listen. It really, there's so many episodes, so many different topics. It's great.
Thank you. And that's Libido Lounge, everybody. That's where you find that one.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty well versed in sexual health and intimacy and all that. And every episode I listened to, I was like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Like, that's amazing.
Yay, that's my goal. Hooray. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We've been looking forward to this for so long. So glad that we were able to have the conversation, and man, we'd love to have you back anytime.
Thank you. I'd love to come back. So I appreciate the invite. It's been a pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of today's podcast episode. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Before we go, we want to take a minute and express our deepest gratitude to all of our incredible guests and listeners. Thank you for being part of our podcast family and sharing your stories with us. If you found value in today's episode, please consider supporting us by subscribing to the podcast so you never miss a new episode. Please leave us a review. Your reviews are like love notes to our podcasting hearts. All of our guests are here voluntarily and not a current or former client of Miranda. If you'd like to be a guest, we'd love to have you. Please reach out to us via email, loveafterlullabies@gmail.com, or DM us on Instagram, and our handle is @loveafterlullabies. While you're there, click on that follow button so you can get all the latest updates and behind the scenes content, and your hanging chair updates. See you next time.
So she got burgers in her ears.